The gang's back together. We're live. Welcome to Dynasty Saturday Night 5, a Dynasty fantasy football podcast on the Going for Two Fantasy Football Network. Please subscribe, rate, and review if you're listening to audio. And if you're watching on anything that's video related, like and comment and subscribe and bell and notification and super twizzle the sparkly things on Twitch or whatever it is that you do there. Click a button that gives us coins in a gift box. I don't really know. But yeah, so I'm Brian Ford here finally after a long stretch live with my co-host Josh Walker. Josh, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. It's been honestly too long. Feels good to get back into the swing of things. Finally updated my Dynasty rankings after 2 months. So that took a while, but it's all there. I'm happy to be here. Happy to see people already here in the chat.
Yeah, really
honestly, I haven't been able to talk to you about any of the rookie stuff, so I'm actually really excited about doing that as well as other startup things.
Right on. Yeah, it's been probably since I think the beginning of the season, we had an episode about like the low scoring and the shift to like a lot of running plays, and we started with that clip from like, is this real life? Is this going to be forever? And then life took over, and we've always been, I think, pretty upfront about like, hey, listen, like this is a fun thing we do that is like maybe 19th on the list of our priorities because we have complex lives. And so here we are, back after some life stuff. Tonight we're going to do something probably a little bit different from that we've normally done before. We're still going to do lists of 5, but I'm framing it a little bit differently as far as like risks that we're willing to take, right? And so that if you're wondering what the title is all about, we'll get into that in a second. So for those of you who are new or who don't remember, we do lists of 5 on the Dynasty topic that we want to talk about, hence the pun of Dynasty Saturday Night 5. But before we get going with our lists, just some general thoughts on these things. But before I even have some general thoughts, I was going to ask you how your rookie drafts are going. But do you want to tell the millions of listeners what you just did to me, or?
So look, I just will preface this by saying me and Brian haven't talked rookie stuff. I don't really know. I have feelings on who Brian's going to like, but I haven't even talked to him. I had the 103, and I happened to take Travion Henderson over Tet McMillan over Travis Hunter. Apparently, Brian really wanted.
Rewind to what happened this morning.
I don't remember that. That's
what did you DM me on Twitter and ask me?
I just said I asked if you're interested in Cam Ward. Just throwing it out there.
And when you DM me in Twitter, did you already have the 105? Because I don't remember you trading for the 105.
Yeah, I had the 103 and the 105.
All right. My dumb ass didn't look, right?
Yeah.
And he asked me in this league, you interested in Ward? I'm like, nah, it's got, most scenarios, he's not going to be my first choice there at 104. Not knowing that Josh had to pick behind me as well.
That's the only reason I asked. Only reason. And I didn't even expect you to answer, honestly. That's just one of those things where you ask and not expect an answer.
I was doing you a friendly courtesy of let's cut the bullshit and talk as what I thought were friends. And so I said no. I'm not really interested in Cam Ward. And what did you respond?
I honestly don't remember what I said. Probably
you responded, I think I'm going to go for him because my quarterback's there. Suck.
Yeah.
Something like
that.
I
thought you knew I had to pick after, so I thought you knew me asking would be I'd use that with the 105.
So now tell the people what happened.
So now Brian took Cam Ward at the 104, even though he didn't want him. And I'm trying to trade back now out of the 105 because I don't. So
yes,
which will be one of my points later.
It's a friendly league. It's a low cost $20 league with a bunch of like-minded people in there, and we're just whatever. It's low stakes. So yeah, Josh took Henderson, who I love. Like I have him ahead of Hampton in my ranks, and I'm totally like I totally thought he'd be there at 4. And I'm like, you mother. I thought you were going to take Ward, and but then I realized you had the 105 as well. So yes, just to be petty, folks, I spike picked Cam Ward to take him away from Josh, even though like I have 3 pretty good quarterbacks in that league. So we're going to probably have to talk about a trade.
Yeah. But besides that, I mean, my rookie drafts are going pretty good. I'm actually really loving the early second rounds, late first. I mean, I have a whole point about that I'm going to talk about later. But they're going pretty good. I'm getting a lot of Luther Burden and Jaden Higgins. I'm very happy about that.
Luther Burden. All right. So what are we talking about this week? We're talking about fucking around and finding out. And so I started thinking about this. When I do Dynasty Fever with Jesse, we used to have this we had this conversation about a player, and I'd be like, okay, well, what are you willing to pay to find out? I'll find out for a third. I'll find out for a mid-second, right? And so I thought maybe we could grow that concept into our topic for tonight. And it's really situated in the context of now that the NFL has, legalized gambling in so many states, and it's like they make it very easy. It's like social and it's gamified, and celebrities have endorsements for there's my parlay, and you can just click on it when you open DraftKings or whatever, instead of just going through and picking the things yourself. You just pick on, LeBron James's parlay for the night and that kind of thing. And, with the underdog pick'ems in all these states too. And then you throw in, of course, best ball, pre-draft best ball, Dynasty that's year round, obviously the way too early redraft folks and the high stakes and the FFPC, and then just the regular redraft. So we are essentially now in a 365-day a year stock market on the NFL one way or another, whether it's through gambling or pick'ems or DFS or Dynasty Fantasy or Best Ball, whatever it is. We're essentially at some point in the year making bets on what's going to happen in NFL football. That's the way it is, right? And when I think about this term making bets, and we're looking at it loosely, right? We know that depending on the timing, right, we vary in what we're betting on, what the price is, right, what the range of outcomes is at that moment, what is the opportunity cost for that bet, and in a way, given the uncertainty, variance, chaos, and all that stuff that's inherent in football and fantasy football, we are always to some degree fucking around, right? And it's a matter of how much are we willing to pay to find out, kind of thing, right? And sometimes we get a whole big dose of finding out. And so tonight we're going to talk about some Dynasty quote unquote bets that we're making that are a little more fucking around than perhaps the usual. These are sort of contrarian stances that we have, or what appear to be contrarian stances that we have. And we're going to think about why are we making these bets, and what do we think the range of outcomes could be, and how could this bite us in the ass, right? So before we dive into that, this time of year, are there any sort of general types of bets that you like to make? So for example, for me, I'm okay with, say there might be this thing and okay, I'll take this guy at ADP in best ball, but I don't like him in Dynasty, right? Or something like that. Or, don't buy running backs too early in the off season, something like that. Is there any sort of rules of thumb that you use for this time of year? Because we're about to enter the dead zone.
Yeah, the main one I do is I try and capitalize on rookie fever, and I try and trade picks in the rookie drafts or right before the rookie drafts for veteran players, and not even veteran players, even just guys in their mid-20s. I traded a very late first for Jordan Addison plus a third. So doing stuff like that, just capitalizing on people being excited about rookies, and just kind of looking over certain guys that we know what we're getting out of, and they're proven assets. And for contenders, if I have a young core anyways, I just want consistency and I want points. So that's the main one. Also, I think it's really easy to acquire for contenders veteran running backs like Aaron Jones, James Conner. You can basically get them for almost nothing. The thing is, the other team might be contending, so they might want a little bit more, but still. I always try and buy veteran running backs for leagues where I might be a little light.
Yeah, because they're cheap this time of year?
Yeah, they're cheap, and when they're in there, Aaron Jones and James Conner, guys like that, they're gonna get a lot of touches. Teams trust them. I mean, yeah, they're old, so like I said, I'm not giving more than a third or anything for them, or maybe some other like Dontavian Wicks plus something, something like that. Guys, I don't really care to give up.
All right, so before we get into our list for tonight, just a reminder that the show is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog has it all. We've got best ball, we've got the dailies and the weeklies, DFS. We got pick'ems in the states where it's legal. We got to get our shit together and get the pick'ems legal in Jersey because I need another way to piss money away. And of course, there's not just football. There's every single major sport, even ones that shouldn't exist, like golf and auto racing. And so why am I telling you this? Well, if you scan the QR code here on the screen, or if you're listening, use the promo code GF2 and you set up a new account on Underdog, you will get some sort of deposit match from us or from them, from Josh Norris himself, if you use the promo code GF2. I'm saying some sort of because I don't know what the exact number is because we've been in hiatus for a while. So I don't know which part of the promo I'm supposed to exactly be reading, but whatever. Go to underdog.com. Go to the Underdog app. If you're a new customer, use the promo code GF2. You're going to get some extra money in there. So just go ahead, do it and try to, win some stuff. Speaking of money, and while I have the QR codes open, you can also donate to Fantasy Cares by scanning this QR code here on your screen. I believe the website would be fantasycares.org if you're listening. Audio, 'tis the season, right? Things like the eliminators are in the books as far as drafting goes. Scott Fishbowl's ramping up, Tadpole Bowl with college football, etc. So yeah, let's show everybody that fantasy does care. All right, Josh, as always, you get to kick us off. Which one of your list of 5 do you want to start with?
All right, I'm going to start with the one that I've realized in the startups lately that I feel the strongest about. And I'm going to fuck around and draft Bryce Young pretty good, well ahead of his ADP. His ADP right now is 77. That's QB 22. Right now I have him ranked at QB 15. And even then, sometimes I'm willing to move him up a little higher. Most of the reasons their O-line is projected to be top 10. And they added Ted McMillan. Jalen Coker proved to be pretty good. And also Horn is getting a lot of hype for his route running. So I think they have a lot of good weapons. They have decent running backs. And honestly, at the end of the year, he just looked really confident, looked happy. And he had 6 rushing touchdowns, and he had pretty good rushing upside in college. We didn't really see that his rookie year. He didn't have any rushing touchdowns, but it came as his confidence grew. And I think his familiarity with the offense and just the speed of the game. Sometimes it takes people longer than others to do it. And I think people gave up on him way too much. And I think they're still way too low on him for his age and what he proved in college.
I'm with you on this. I think, we're going to see, of course, a nice bounce back from Bryce towards the end of the year. He looked really good. He looked like he was doing some Alabama Bryce things. The confidence was there, which I think is an important part, and I think goes underrated when it comes to quarterbacks. And it's something that you can't really quantify, right? It's something that you have to see and sort of how someone is carrying themselves. And you could tell he was getting in his bag. He was in his groove, right? And then, of course, you add Tet. They spent some money beefing up the offensive line. The run game's pretty decent. So, yeah, I think I'm probably too low. I have him at 21. And it's just a matter of who am I putting him ahead of? I don't know that I can put him ahead of guys like Dak and Baker yet, which are kind of like my 18 and 19 or 17 and 18 in there. But yeah, I dig it. So let's say when it comes to the range of outcomes, because we've talked about, okay, you're going to fuck around and you're going to be bullish on Bryce and maybe even take him at ADP or ahead. What does it look like when this doesn't work out, and what makes you okay to lose on this bet, I guess?
Honestly, Ted McMillan might not work out, kind of like Leggett didn't. Their offensive line might not hold up as well. All it takes is one running back injury to really kill the run game. And then, all it takes is 1 or 2 bad games and maybe he just loses that confidence he has and it looks really bad. But at the same time, I'm willing to do it because he's still young. They can still bring more people in next year. Getting him, it's a long-term investment more than just a year or two. So I'm willing to take the chance, just given his age, given, the fluidity of personnel, coaches, all that stuff. I think there's still plenty of time.
All right. Love it. I'm going to start with, which one should I do first? Should I do my quarterback one?
Yeah, I was going to say, just go ahead and knock out the quarterbacks.
All right, I'm bullish on Trevor Lawrence, and in some ways, I've kind of always been on the bullish side of Trevor Lawrence, and it has bitten me in the ass, you know. And I know there's a narrative out there that he's not as good as we once thought, and you know that if you compare a lot of his numbers to those of Daniel Jones, they're scarily similar, and that sort of thing. And I know that people like to really rag on him and talk about generational. Here's the thing with Trevor Lawrence, with Marvin Harrison, with Bijan Robinson. I hear the word generational more often in people making fun of it or saying that it shouldn't be used or we use generational too much, but than I actually do in people actually describing him as generational. So just shut up with that for that, right? This is all about expectations for a 101 Golden Boy more so than it is his actual numbers in a vacuum. Right. If a fifth round quarterback was putting up these numbers for fantasy, right, we wouldn't be having some of these same conversations. As far as I'm concerned, you completely disregard his first rookie year with Urban Meyer. Right. And then when you look at his stretches, when he has his good stretches, he's as good as almost anybody in the league. And he's been banged up, too. Awful coaching with Peterson. And all that is kind of turning itself around. We've got Liam Cohen, so we've got reason to be optimistic about the ecosystem. He's got weapons. Travis Hunter, Brian Thomas, Tootin, Bigsby, Etienne, they'll figure something out in that backfield. You know, I think you got to trust Cohen when it comes to that. You know, they've made some slight improvements in the defense, but it's not great. So you're going to probably have games where they're going to have to score and things like that. I am bullish enough to have him as quarterback 9. He's in a tier of 8 to 11 for me. And just for reference, you've got him at 16. Going for 2 has him at 16. Keep Trade Cut 16, Fantasy Calc 17, Dynasty Data Lab ADP is 501 at quarterback 17. Underdog, for those in the underdog streets right now, he's quarterback 19 going in the early 12th round. Guys that are ahead of him in one way or another in rankings or ADP that I don't think should be, Kyler at the 402, almost a whole round ahead of him in ADP. JJ McCarthy is a few picks behind him in ADP, but is often ahead when you look at rankings. Purdy at 412, only 1 pick ahead, so I'm not really going to mess around with it too much, but I have him 4 or 5 spots ahead and in a different tier when it comes to my quarterback rankings. Love at the 309. Jordan Love is a round and a half better in ADP than Trevor Lawrence? Folks, what are we doing here? Cam Ward, the 407. When Trevor Lawrence is the 501, what are we smoking? And then Baker, who I have definitely below Lawrence by a lot, but who is sometimes ahead of him in rankings, is ahead of him in ADP at the 405. I would take Trevor Lawrence over all those guys. In my rankings, I also have Trevor Lawrence ahead of Mahomes, Stroud, Herbert, and Nix, but I'll listen to an argument there. Like those guys I can kind of understand. I'll excuse you. The other guys, if you've got them ahead of Trevor, we should make a trade because I'm bullish on Trevor. And you know, the range of outcomes on this, I mean, when I'm looking at it, like he has probably a top 8 quarterback season in there, right? If he scoots a little bit, scores a few rushing touchdowns, things go well with Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas. They find the formula in the backfield, whatever that is. Hopefully it means getting rid of Etienne and giving a lot of run to Tootin. Right. That I think is there. And I think at the prices he's going at now, I'm willing to make that bet with that ceiling in there. And what's the worst that could happen? What was the worst that the floor could be with all that already in place for him? Like I'm good. I'm good to go. I'm willing to fuck around on this. I will. And this happens to be one where I looked at my exposures and I think I have like 14 out of like my 38 leagues or something. I already have Trevor Lawrence. So I've got some bags and they're packed and I'm ready to roll.
I like it. Yeah, hearing Cam Ward over Lawrence is kind of wild. Also hearing, like Kyle said, but also you having Lawrence over Mahomes is also kind of wild to me. I think Mahomes is being slept on a little too much. I think he's going to be a top 4 quarterback again this year.
I almost put him on my list because I think
I did too.
Going into last year, I kind of think of him the same way. Like as far as, if guys stay healthy with his weapons, he's going to throw deep more, and things are going to be a lot better. Except that when he tried to throw deep last year, he wasn't very good doing it. So I was a little more reserved about that. When it comes to him compared to Trevor, I have Trevor at 9, and I think Mahomes at like 10 or 11. They're in the same tier, so it's not a huge deal.
Yeah. I actually, in one of the startups I'm actually in this live going right now, I took Trevor Lawrence at the 410. I was happy with that. I probably would have taken him earlier in the 4th round, but I do still have Kyler, Purdy, Herbert, and I even have Bryce Young ahead of him. But Bryce Young, it's one ahead. I could easily switch. I do think Liam Cohen is gonna do wonders for Trevor Lawrence. And honestly, the biggest thing is just staying healthy. I think he's been playing probably like 60, 70%. And I don't think he's gotten enough credit for that, as well as the bad coaching. So I also do like Trevor Lawrence. I could easily see him moving up in my rankings once the season starts and we show that Liam Cohen's really got a good offense set in place.
Let's pause for a second in our lists, right? Because I do want to address Kyler, and I want to address Jamie's comment about Fields in the chat. So you have Kyler ahead of Trevor.
Mm-hmm.
Make that case for me.
I think it's just I still like the Cardinals offense, and I still like Kyler's rushing upside. I think Trevor Lawrence does have sneaky rushing upside also, but I think they're going to do more runs for Kyler. And also I think Marvin Harrison's going to take a step up, and they have Trey McBride. I like the weapons more in Arizona, but I like the offensive coordinator more. He's only 2 spots ahead, so it's pretty close. I don't really like Jordan Love being ahead of Trevor Lawrence, though. But Lawrence could easily move ahead of Kyler because Lawrence definitely has more room to move up. Kyler's kind of already at his peak. Like, I don't see Kyler moving up much more than he's at already.
I almost put bearish on Kyler on this list for tonight. He's a rushing merchant, and the rushing isn't good enough for me anymore. We're always like, oh, he could be. And like, he's already a few seasons removed from when he was like a really good scoring quarterback. And it took pretty much DeAndre Hopkins for him to do that, right? He's just not a very good passer. And he's short and can't really see over the middle of the field. And I love Marvin Harrison. And when you look at the way he was used last year, when it comes to in-breakers or screens or just like easy button stuff, it was not there. But at the same time, those are also, especially like the in-breakers, the over the middle stuff, when people are playing too high, yada, yada, those are not the throws that Kyler's really great at making because he's tiny. Yeah. So I'm starting to really sour. I used to be a Kyler bull. I'm trying to sell him in places where I have him. At ADP, Jamie likes Fields over just about everybody here. I think having been a Fields truther and defender for so long, I'm just skittish now about being that optimistic on him. Like, I know that the ceiling is there as far as, a top 10 quarterback, because of the rushing. But when I think about the points per game that offense is going to score and the lack of weapons really beyond, Mason Taylor, Brees, and Garrett Wilson, and the volume's going to be low because he's going to run. Like, I don't know. I can't get there. I can't. Do I see it? Do some smart people love taking Fields as their second QB in best ball because of that upside? Absolutely. I'm trigger shy on it because I've been defending him for years and just been wrong. So
Fields is by far my most rostered quarterback. I've kept him rostered since he was drafted, really, and people keep trying to add him as like a little throw in on some trades, and I won't budge because I know as soon as he gets a job, he's going to run with it. Even in Pittsburgh, with Arthur Smith, one of the most archaic, boring offensive coordinators, he was able to get the ball to Pickens. He was able to run that offense, and he had a winning record. I think he's going to do good for Garrett Wilson. I think he's able to prop up a stud receiver, and I think he's going to help Brees Hall open up the run game because he's one of the best rushing quarterbacks we've seen. He's up there with Lamar. He showed it, I think, his rookie or second season. But I love Justin Fields. The Jets, obviously, is not the most ideal team organization. They're kind of shittily ran, but at the same time, his athleticism, and I think he's very underrated as a thrower. I think he's got a lot more to show. I'm with Jamie. I think he's definitely got the most upside. No, I've been we were both saying that back in the day. I still love Justin Fields.
So let me ask. I got Justin Fields at 19 in my quarterback rankings. Let me go up from there, and you tell me if you like Fields or the other guy. Fields versus Baker.
At ADP, I'll take Fields.
Jordan Love.
Easily Fields.
Dak Prescott.
I'm going to talk about Dak, but at ADP where you can get Fields, I'll take Fields where they're going, but I do like Dak a lot.
Kyler.
Fields.
Okay. Brock Purdy.
I almost put Purdy on my list. I've come a long ways on Brock Purdy. I actually like Brock Purdy. I'll take Purdy over Fields.
He clearly took steps forward last year.
Yeah.
And
I was very impressed with him.
They did a lot of big boy straight drop back stuff too that they hadn't done in a long time. And yeah. Okay. So
he carried them too when they didn't have very many options. He still was able to. I like Brock Purdy a lot.
All right. So here's a guy that I'm very bullish on. So it depends on who you are here. Fields or McCarthy?
I'll take Fields. I've seen clips of McCarthy looking pretty good, but we just haven't seen him. And I know Fields is a 1,000-yard rusher when he's a full season.
All right. And then the last one I'll give you is Knicks.
I'll take Knicks.
Okay. So
I like Knicks a lot.
There was maybe two guys in there, Knicks and Purdy, that at ADP you like over Fields. Yep. Interesting. Okay. I think.
Yeah, and I got Knicks in the third round, the same draft I got Lawrence. I got Knicks in the late third, Lawrence late fourth, and I'm very happy with those two quarterbacks.
All right. Thank you for the Fields comment, Jamie. I did want to talk about that. I'm traumatized, and I need to rethink that. All right. So who's next on your list?
My list. I'm just gonna go straight down, and this is one I've actually acted on, and this is only tight end premium. I'm gonna fuck around and take Brock Bowers at the 104 in Superflex tight end premium startups. And that's after, in any order, Jaden Daniels, Lamar, and Josh Allen. And especially full point tight end premium, I'm definitely taking Brock Bowers at 104. It 153 targets as a rookie is absolutely insane. He shattered Ditka's record. He actually broke the complete rookie record, as most everyone knows, for the NFL. And he had 1,200 yards as a rookie tight end. Rookie tight ends are notoriously slow to come out and produce. And he produced with Aiden O'Connell. I don't know who else was even their quarterback. He did it with terrible quarterback play. And now they brought in Geno. They brought in Chip Kelly and Ashton Genty. I think they're going to have a really good run game, which I think is ultimately going to help Bowers in the play action. And even if he doesn't improve on his numbers, 112 receptions, 1,200 yards, he's still, I think, in my opinion, easily going to be the tight end one. And just the positional advantage that he gives you at tight end is so much more than taking, you could take Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson, but you can also take Brian Thomas at the early second. And the difference isn't going to be that much from the wide receiver 7 to the wide receiver 1 as it will be for tight end. So I'm going to hammer that. I'm going to try and get the biggest advantage I can in every draft. And I'm all over Brock Bowers. I think he's going to improve. Only 6 touchdowns with the targets and receptions. I think that's going to go up. So yeah, I'm very, very bullish on him.
All right, let's say you're on the clock at 104 because I'm trying to figure out how much are we willing to fuck around here? Are you clicking him 104 or are you saying?
Yeah, I actually did.
Most people won't, and I'm gonna trade back a couple spots.
No, I've seen him go at the 106, and in certain ones, if I have a late first, I might. I'm not going to try and trade up, but I'll take McBride. But if I can't get McBride, I want Bowers. And if I can't get either of those, I'm just going to wait. Because I just drafted Dalton Schultz in the 17th round. And that's the starting tight end. People are taking the rookies like Arroyo, Fannin, who I really like Fannin, but they're taking these guys over people like Hunter Henry, guys who are going to go in there and get you touches. And so if I can't get Bowers or McBride, I'm just going to wait. But I actually have taken Bowers at the 104.
Okay, I dig it. I think
now this is only in tight end premium. Yeah. Non-tight end premium, I'm not doing that.
Obviously. I think conceptually, you're correct. It is hard for me to probably get there and do it.
It was hard to do it.
But your argument is sound. And I think the one thing that really sealed the deal for me was when you said, hey, you know, what really could be the difference between JJ and say if one of these other guys like Neighbors or Thomas or even, you know, Lad McConkey or Nico or something like one of those guys really hit their ceiling, and Justin Jefferson, you know, has another year like last year where it's steady, but there's really no really huge 25-point spike weeks or whatever, or 30-point spike weeks, because it's a rookie quarterback and maybe they're running a little bit more with Jordan Mason there and stuff like that. So I like it. Okay, what does this look like if this goes wrong? What has to happen for this to really go wrong for you?
Honestly, the only way this goes wrong for me is if the quarterbacks I take later or the wide receivers or running backs I take later just completely either get injured or just don't pan out. And then I'm out of skill positions and my quarterbacks suck because, you know, like Kyle just said, I didn't take Hurts, but I've been able to get Nix and Lawrence late. Brock Purdy, like I'm willing to take those guys in the second and third rounds and take Bowers. So honestly, the bad side of that isn't terrible for me because I still have Brock Bowers. I just might not win for a year or two like I wanted to if I don't hit on my quarterbacks or wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to look at the math, but I think at every position, you can probably make the case that the advantage, you know, is better by taking Bowers. So in other words, even the difference between like a Hurts and whatever, you know, the Knicks, the Lawrence, the Herbert, the Mahomes, like, right, you know, or the difference between guys I'm about to talk about in a second that I think should not be taken in the first round in a dynasty startup, like Bijan and Gibbs, right? Like, you know, and who you're getting later on, like that really is speaking to me. The Bowers at the 104.
It's not easy to do because I love Jamar Chase. I love Justin Jefferson. Those are sexy names I have in your lineup. But the league that I most easily won, I took Bowers when I already had Kittle and McBride in the rookie draft. And that stayed my tight end and flexes the whole year. And I just absolutely dominated. So especially tight end premium leagues, man, stack up on the studs.
Even in a 1.5 and with the addition of Genty there, you're going to.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Just trying to figure out where the line is. And I think it's worth talking about the difference between a 1.5 and a 7.5 and a 2 point, like, you know,
1.5, it will be a little tougher. Now, that's when I'd look for bonuses for wide receivers, like big gains, 40-yard catches or something like that, or first downs. Then I might sway towards Jamar Chase. But, yeah, it's –
all right. Well, that dovetails nicely into my – hold on. I just want to put Kyle's comment up here for a second. Let's see. To Josh's credit, you might get Herbert at 209 by passing on Hurts. You could get Nico at 209 by passing on Chase. See, there you go. All right. So my second one is I am really mad at the Dynasty community, right? I step away for a few seconds and I come back and there's Dynasty Onion, which is a great account on Twitter. You know, he's posting about stuff and he's mentioning these first round running backs like Gibbs and Bijan. I'm like, first round. I'm like, yeah, but like that's only in one QB, bro. Like it's a different, you know, calculation. So this other person chimes in and is like, no, they're in superbacks. I'm like, wait, what? Superback? No, you're kidding me, right? Anyway, long story short, the person says every startup I've been in, these guys go first round, and I'm like, no startup I'm in, these guys are going first round. So I look on Dynasty Data Lab ADP. Bijan's ADP is 109 and Gibbs is 111. I am really mad at the Dynasty community. Be better. How did you let running backs sneak into the first round of a Superflex tight end premium startup? What are you doing? Stop. Please. All right. So I would take anywhere between 9 and 18 players ahead of these guys, right? So the highest I'm ever taking any of these guys is 110. And even then, I'm probably not doing it. I might trade out, you know, into the second at that point, right? and this is twofold, right? Not only are there guys that I want more, but one of the reasons there's guys I want more is because of the running backs I can get later, right? So first off, the guys that I would take ahead of him, all right? In some order, Lamar, Allen, Daniels, Chase, Jefferson, Hurts, Burrow, Lamb, Bowers. Would you agree that those 9 are pretty, no question? Okay. Yep. Nico, Amon-Ra, Puka.
Yeah, I'm taking all of them, and probably Brian Thomas Jr. also.
Okay. I would take Brian Thomas Jr., Neighbors, and Ladd, and I'd even flirt with taking Caleb or Drake May ahead of Bijan or Gibbs. I don't have to, but I have them ahead, right? So what do you think about those guys?
No, I actually agree 100% on this. I love Drake May. I love all those receivers. I'd rather build starting, with quarterbacks or receivers. Obviously, I'm not going to argue if you want to do it 111, 112. I'm just not going to, and I'm going to reap the rewards from you doing that and pushing other people down, like pushing Amon-Ra to the middle of the second round because you guys are taking running backs.
And I'm somebody who with Amon-Ra and Puka is like, we kind of need to be careful with them, even though I still have them up there. Okay, so the flip side, that's not the flip side of that, but the addendum to that is you're also able to get good running backs, and it's not even in like a hero RB, zero RB, take running back late situation because of the infusion of the 2025 rookie class. We just have solid rookies and solid running backs 1 through like whatever you want to say, like 14, 15, where it's like, I don't need to spend this capital on Bijan or Gibbs. And the positional advantage is not a Bowers positional advantage, right? So just going to read off to you in order my running back rankings, and I'll stop after a little while. But like all of a sudden, running back is deep, right? Because of these 2025 rookies. All right. Bijan, Gibbs, Genty, Henderson, Achane, Brees, Bucky, Hampton, Barkley, Walker, Harvey, Judkins, Jonathan Taylor, Caleb Johnson. If you want to take the old guys in there too, like McCaffrey, Jacobs, Henry, that's already 17 guys. And I haven't even gotten to, the people who like James Cook and Chase Brown. Why would you spend a first round startup pick on Bijan or Gibbs when you have those guys there for you? You can get Hampton at the 305, Achane at the 306, Bucky at the 312, Brees at the 404, JT at the 408, Hendo at the 409, Judkins the 502, Jacobs the 504, Walker, who I think people are sleeping on, at the 606, Caleb Johnson, if that's your thing, at the 610, RJ Harvey at the 611, Bayshell 2 at the 1107. We're getting a little bit of feedback in your mic. You need to lower your something on the mic there. Yeah, maybe the gain or something like that. Yeah. Bayshell Tootin at 1107, right? Who I would be comfortable with as my RB2 probably going into the year. It's a little risky, right? But especially now before we see how things shake out with the depth chart and whether they're going to trade or cut Etienne or whatever. But like, come on, folks, you can't be spending a first round pick on a running back when you've got this type of structure going on in the startup ADP. Now, what does this look like? Well, obviously, Bijan and Gibbs could just have huge years. Montgomery ages more, and they give more and more touches to Gibbs, and things are less certain with Laporta and JMO, and the offense just leans on the young electric Gibbs, and he has this just monster sick ceiling season, and like the guys that you make bets on later just aren't it. Okay, fine, but it's kind of like one of those things like hat tip. If you put up a Saquon year this year, Jahmyr Gibbs, hat tip to you. You deserve it. You beat me. Otherwise, I can't do this. What say you?
No, I agree. I've learned that I'm probably not going to be getting Bijan and Gibbs where I didn't get them in rookie drafts for that very reason, because they're too expensive to trade for. I'm not getting them in startups. So I agree completely. I'd just rather take stud tight ends and wide receivers and quarterbacks before I do that. So, 3 or 4 years down the road, Bijan might not even be a factor in the NFL anymore. We just don't know with that position. So,
Yeah, and Jamie is saying here, was able to get Tootin in the 10th round. He has him as top 25. Same. I have Tootin at 22 at the moment, and like I'm totally fine getting him in double-digit rounds. Like I don't know, it seems a little. The difference just isn't big enough. Like especially if like you're like me and you love Henderson, or even if you're a Harvey person and you love Harvey. Like look at that cost in startups relative to Gibbs, and it's just like why would you even do it? Yeah.
No, I agree.
All right, your next contrarian take where you're fucking around and finding out.
All right, yeah, I'm gonna fuck around and I'm gonna fade O'Dunes. I'm not gonna sell him because I was never really super high on him, but if I did have him, I would try and sell him. And most of that is just I was extremely unimpressed with his rookie year. He didn't really show the skills of getting open and route running that and separating that he did in college. And honestly, there weren't really too many bright spots to really look onto and be like, oh, well, he can maybe build on that. Ben Johnson's coming in. So at first I thought that was going to be good, but then they went and drafted another wide receiver who I think is better than him and has more upside. And they brought in another tight end. So now they have two tight ends who are going to get targets in Kmet and Loveland. And I think Luther Burden's probably going to slide right into the slot role. Matt Waldman, who's obviously a lot smarter than both of us, is very, very high on Luther Burden, and he projects him just to slide right into that Amon-Ra St. Brown role in the Ben Johnson offense. And not to say Burden's better, but I think he has things that Amon-Ra St. Brown couldn't bring, like yards after the catch and things like that. So I'm very excited about that, and I just think there's too many mouths to feed. DeAndre Swift's still there, catch some passes. I just think O'Dunes is going to be the one to kind of be faded out. He might have some good spike games, but overall, I'm just kind of out. And the way this really backfires is he's still technically the other outside receiver. There is a world where either DJ Moore gets hurt or his off the field stuff where he's like frustrated comes to fruition, and Rome Odunze is the guy. And he really takes a step forward, shows what he did in college, and Burden and Loveland and other guys are the ones to, miss out. But I'm willing to take that chance. I like the upside of Loveland and Burden a lot more. And DJ Moore is still a top 20 Dynasty wide receiver. So I just think he's going to be the one to be phased out.
All right. I think it's probably where we're going to have probably our first notable disagreement. I'm down with some of the stuff you said. I think Burden, although I'm not as high on him as some other folks are, including Waldman. I do see the argument for him slotting into that role, him bringing the verticality, that Amon-Ra did, and even him being, essentially the wide receiver one and number one pass catcher for Caleb Williams in Chicago. For me, DJ Moore is the guy that's going to be the odd man out. He's the guy that wasn't putting in the effort. He's the guy that has the role overlap with Burden more than other guys do. Loveland, sure, love him, can definitely be a Laporta type, but, that doesn't necessarily mean that the offense is going to run through him. He's still a tight end, right? We still see that, a guy like Laporta plays a very much a secondary role in the Lions offense. And also we can't just pattern match and say things are going to happen one-to-one when it comes to what Ben Johnson does. Ben Johnson didn't have a Rome Odunze in Detroit. Does he like to run things through the slot receiver? Sure. Name me an X-type receiver that he had in, Tim Patrick, Josh Reynolds, and so I think he's going to be smart enough to use what he has. To be fair, I did, after some consideration and listening to some good arguments about a range of outcomes on Odunze, including one that JJ Zachariason did a really good episode. It was centered around a trade that he made where he traded Odunze for the 108 and got roasted about it in Reddit in certain places. And so he kind of laid out, and it's like Odunze isn't getting the knock in value that JSN got after a lackluster rookie year. And even though the years were different, and you can say that there's a reason that Odunze isn't getting it because there's the Ben Johnson factor, I still think it's a good argument that he probably should be, especially after they spend top 50 picks on Loveland and Burden. He should be knocked down a little bit, and I did. I knocked him down to, I want to say, my wide receiver 20, right? But I don't know that I'm like a fade or a sell on him. I think I have him at 19. So for me, it's more of a like this spells doom for DJ more than it does for Rome Odunze. So whereas I'm knocking Odunze a little bit because you kind of have to, I'm almost like shadow realming Moore. Like give me a second and a fourth for DJ Moore and you can have him. Like I'm gone, you know. So that's just kind of I think the difference between that. So at ADP, he's 506 Odunze and wide receiver 19. I don't think that's terrible because wide receiver does start to thin out a little bit, you know, although you can grab like a Waddle and a JMO and a Golden, you know, if you're into them around later, and a Jordan Addison, who I'm into more
George
around
Pickens.
later, you know, and I wouldn't like, nah. But I get it, right? There are other choices that you can make, you know, whereas if you look at like the cost versus the benefit, I can see where someone would make that bet instead of making that bet on Odunze.
Yeah, I don't disagree it. I mean, I do, but not like I understand where you're coming from. I think JSN is just fundamentally a decent bit better than Odunze is, and I think he had more competition in Seattle. And I really hope that DJ Moore, you know, puts that aside because Caleb Williams did show signs of improvement, and now that he actually is being coached how to watch tape, I think the improvements are going to be better. So, say what you want about DJ Moore, I still think he's the best receiver in that group. And if they're trying to win, they're going to try and get the ball to him. But there is a very good chance where he just falls off, or he just pulls a diva card and they just move on to people who actually want to be there.
Yeah, so Kyle has really pushed DJ Moore down to wide receiver 43. I haven't punished him that much. I'm at 37, so that's not too far ahead of Kyle, but it directionally is saying the same thing, that we think he's the odd man out.
Got him at 28. So.
Okay.
I moved him out of the wide receiver 2 where I had him before, but he's still right there.
All right. Well, speaking of caution on a wide receiver, I promise this isn't because I love Xavier Worthy, but I want to preach caution on Rashee Rice. And you would think that it's not a very contrarian take for a guy coming off a knee injury like that, and with a possible looming, criminal suspension or suspension due to criminal activity or whatever you want to call it, right? Fuck the police. But, it is a contrarian take out there. In the underdog streets, he's still going out as wide receiver 16 at ADP of 28.3. So he's mid-third round. People are still willing, to make that bet. I've been on quite the journey with Rashee Rice. He's one of those guys where at every phase of the situation, I'm against where the market is on him. So in college, I was like, listen, if he proves a little bit of more of the athleticism, he can find a role in the NFL, even if it's limited. And he probably, has to improve his hands and things like that, right? Well, he goes and tests pretty well at the combine. Like I think his low 4.5s was his 40 time, and he kind of checked that box for people, right? And so I was above the market on Rashee Rice at that point. Then he goes and gets drafted by the Chiefs, and then everybody's doing the whole, wheels up, to the moon. I'm like, well, he's just another one of the 78 wide receivers who aren't named Travis Kelce. So I was lower than the market on Rashee Rice, and then, he found a role with the team that was very different from what he was doing in college. And he was producing in that role, particularly late in 2023. And I started to be with the market on him. I'm like, okay, he's proven this. It's, portion of a rookie year, but I can see it, right? Kelce's aging. He's getting the type of targets that are good in today's NFL, over the middle, intermediate. Okay, I'm with you. And then I think things got a little bit out of control early on in that in that fourth in 2024. People were willing to put him then in like the dynasty wide receiver, like top 10. And I was below the market again on that. And I'm like, that's a little too much. Like, it's early in the year. Worthy can do more Rashee Rice things than Rashee Rice can do Worthy things. Worthy is a much more complete player than people think. People think of him as either like gadgety or like a deep threat. And to a certain degree, I can understand why those might look like the best things that he can do, but he's got a lot of stuff in his toolbox. He makes guys miss. He makes dudes look silly. He's a route winner, right? He can run a lot of different routes. Yeah, you're not going to put him on a lot of boundary stuff and that kind of thing without messing around with like, pre-snap motion and things like that. But he's better than people think, and I will die on that hill. So I'm below consensus when it comes to Rice. I've got him at wide receiver 21. The community more or less has him at wide receiver 16, 17, a little bit of the 18, 19. His ADP of 406 at wide receiver 17 in Dynasty Data Lab. Startup ADP, I don't deny that there is a good argument for him, even at his price. So Jacob Sanderson tweeted in response to Patrick Mahomes saying that, Rice was, a full go. He said, fully healthy wide receiver going into year 3 with a career 2.35 yards per route run and 25% targets per route run on a team with a top 5 pass volume every single year. He probably shouldn't be going in round 3. He was referring to best ball ADP. And I get that, except the fully healthy part. I'm not convinced that I get one good Patrick Mahomes quote. Andy Reid, what is Andy Reid going to say? Like, he's way behind on his rehab. He had, as part of this injury, posterior lateral corner of his knee was damaged. And according to Brandon Angelo, who does a podcast with the aforementioned Matt Waltman, and whose basis for a lot of this stuff is that he is, I guess we would call it movement science, right? Like, he helps athletes with movement and with rehabbing and things like that. The knee can be fine, and you can look good whatever months out of the surgery, and you can have good videos on YouTube, but he has concerns about volume over time. You're running a lot of routes as a wide receiver, right? And you're doing that on a team that passes a lot, right? And you're getting a lot of targets. Fatigue over time because of all that, right? And then, of course, repeat contact and impact over time, right? From not only being tackled, but being out there for every snap, the type of routes you're getting, being tackled a lot. We still have to see him deal with those things. There could be a very slow ramping up for the season. And now that they know that even though they win in different ways, Worthy and Rice can both be low ADOT targets, I don't know that we can say that there's this big night and day difference between what Rashee Rice is going to be able to do on the field and what Xavier Worthy can do on the field. Add into that there's still the possibility of suspension, even though that seems less likely according to legal experts because these things move slowly. And I just can't see having him definitively in like the top 12, 15 dynasty wide receivers, having him, light years above Worthy. He's about 3 rounds, I think, ahead of Worthy in ADP. And I just don't see it. And, so what is the range of outcomes on this? How do I look wrong? I don't know, right? Like, Rice could just be totally healthy. He's fine. He's full go. He's as good as he was in early 2024. Worthy is still very ancillary, and I look like an asshole. Obviously, that can happen. I don't think that that's a huge part of the range of outcomes the way that some other people do, and that's why I'm kind of bearish on Rashee Rice. And what we could see, especially with Jalen Royals, who also has been talked about by the team as having some Rashee Rice skills to him, and then you add in that Hollywood Brown is, by all intents and purposes, healthy now to start the year, right? And he got hurt last. Like, all those guys are there. We're looking at a Packers wide receiver room of everybody's going to disappoint us, right? That's in the range of outcomes too. And there's my spiel. There's my soapbox on people are a little too high on Rashee Rice.
You know who benefits from that Packers wide receiver room? Patrick Mahomes. That's why he's a good buy right now. Honestly, all those people healthy. But yeah, about Rashee Rice, I have him at, I think, 18. The only way I'm buying Rashee Rice is if I'm looking at 2026 to compete. like some of my rebuilds, he's one of the better targets I'm going after. Because while I do believe that the knee is healthy right now because it was an exterior surgery, not like an interior, like an ACL or like it's still, like you said, wearing over time. Cutting in games is more violent than cutting, when you're not wearing pads. There might be limitations. I've heard players talk about not wanting to push it too far so they don't cut or move like they used to just because they don't want to re-injure themselves. That's obviously a possibility. Where I have Rice, I'm going to put him in like he's healthy, but I'm not going to acquire him unless I'm rebuilding. If I'm trying to win this year, I'd rather have Worthy. But if you're looking for the future, I'd still take Rice. I think Rice is overall the better talent than Worthy, and I think he'll hold up better over time as long as he doesn't re-injure the knee or something comes up. Just given Worthy's size, already dealt with an injury, I just think over time Rice is still the guy to have, but not for 2025.
I don't think he is anywhere near the talent that Xavier Worthy is. What I think happened with Rice is they took a guy and said, what if we put him in this role and spammed him with targets in an NFL that plays too high? Okay, he's going to score fantasy points. That's a different argument from the talent. I think Worthy is light years ahead of him when it comes to talent.
Fair. For overall football talent, yeah, but for fantasy, I think Rice has more upside overall. And that's what I meant because, like Jamie put in the comments, Rice was a top 10 wide receiver when he was healthy. So, that's obviously there.
When he was a top 10 wide receiver, when you're still bringing Worthy along slowly, and he has the trust, and Rice has the trust of being the incumbent. When Hollywood Brown got hurt, right? When I think it was week 2, right? Pacheco got hurt, right?
It's like week 2 or 3.
Yeah, so like,
hey, I've always been in on Rice. I'm still gonna ride the train.
Okay, all right. What's your next fucking around and finding out?
It's gonna be my other good buy, and he's going one spot ahead of Bryce Young. I'm gonna fuck around and start drafting Dak Prescott like he's prime Dak again. And one of the main reasons for that is George Pickens going there. This is by far the best wide receiver too Dak's had to work with. The run game is still gonna be shit, but that offense and defense, like that team's just not gonna be that good. So they're gonna have to throw a lot. They're gonna be playing behind. And I think Pickens is the perfect, as long as he can keep his head together and learn from some veterans like CeeDee Lamb and Dak. I think he's going to be the perfect complement to CeeDee Lamb. Even Tolbert was got close to 100 targets or got over 100 targets. And Pickens is so much better than Tolbert. He's just healthy. He's finally healthy. And when Dak Prescott's healthy, he's a top 12 quarterback. He's not too old to the point where I think he's washed up. I think he's just being slept on way too much, whether it be because that offense isn't supposed to be good because they don't have a running back or whatever. But I'm buying in. He's got weapons. He's been able to support wide receivers. He's got a good tight end, 2 good receivers. I'm back in on Dak Prescott.
Same. Yeah, I actually feel bad having him as low as I do at like whatever I have him, like quarterback 18 or whatever. It's just one of those things where, there's this glob of quarterbacks, I think, after like the top 10-ish or so, where people tend to
Baker and Goff.
Yeah. And Purdy and JJ McCarthy and Kyler's in there somewhere. And it's kind of like pick your flavor. It's really the only reason he's towards the bottom of that tier at 18 or 19 for me is he is 31 years old. And so, that's not old for a quarterback, but if there's a tiebreaker versus, some other guys, right? Going at 605 in startup ADP at the moment. And, when we talk about that, we pay too much for quarterback in Superflex, right? That starts to become especially true after like those first really good 5, 6, 7 guys, right? And when you can get a guy like Dak in at 605 at quarterback 21, right? When 2 rounds earlier, Mayfield is going at quarterback 14 at 406, and 1 round before that at 508, Jared Goff is going at quarterback 19. Give me Dak all day at those ADPs. Yeah.
Yeah. That's mostly it. Like how late you can get him. Like especially like say like I said earlier, if I take Bowers and then I want to take a receiver that falls like Brian Thomas Jr. might not fall that far, but Nico Collins, and then I might take another receiver. I can still confident to get either Bryce Young, Dak, even Trevor Lawrence, and still get two good quarterbacks. Then take Anthony Richardson as your third in like the 10th or 11th round. So,
I mean, you certainly like Pickens more than I do, and I do agree with Kyle that Amari Cooper might have been a better number 2 than Pickens is now.
Mentally.
But there certainly is upside there with Pickens, and he's conversely probably has the best quarterback that he's played with.
Yeah,
Pickens. So I'm just trying to think what he's had on the Steelers since he's been there. Fields, Russ, Mason Rudolph, Pickett, right? Those have been the quarterbacks that he's had to play with. So yeah,
he had Fields, but still Dak's better at distributing, throwing on timing much better than Fields is at that anyway. So,
all right. So what does this look like if it goes wrong for you?
Pickens turns into a diva. They're back to funneling to CeeDee Lamb. Ferguson gets hurt again. He's been hurt a couple of years. Or just Dak's just not the same that he used to be, and he throws a lot of interceptions. He's been prone to turnovers. And then the team's just so bad that, the vibes are just down overall. But even then, like you get them so late, I'm fine with taking.
Yeah, that's the thing. The price makes the price of fucking around makes the finding out like not that bad, right? Because I mean, Dak is, I wouldn't call him a statue, but let's call him a pocket passer, right? I wouldn't call Baker a statue, but he's mainly a pocket passer. He can scoot a little bit, but he's mainly a pocket passer. Goff is more of a statue, right?
Yeah.
And like those guys would have to have really good years to bury you for waiting to take Dak in the 6th, right? Yeah. And when you look at like the fact that Baker had like a career year, it was 4,500 yards and 40 plus touchdowns, I think, to get where he was last year because he doesn't run that much. And when you look at Goff losing Ben Johnson, like they have to have sick years for you to really get buried for waiting to take Dak.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. So let me hit you with, do you want Jarquez Hunter first or Chase Brown?
Let's do Hunter first.
All right. Jarquez Hunter is the best running back in the LA Rams backfield right now. And this is coming from somebody who more or less has been higher than the market on Kyren up until about right now, like the last couple months or so. And I know he's a Notre Dame guy. I know you and I know you're big on Notre Dame because I hate you. But so how am I going to use that to my advantage? It's more about pricing, right? It's more about like I'm going to take a little bit of Hunter and take a little bit of Corum because they're close in price when it comes to like the underdog best ball streets. I'm probably going to fade Kyren at ADP. That's how I'm using this take. When it comes to Dynasty, probably something similar. And I'm late to the party, I will admit, on Jarquez Hunter. For me, it was kind of like, oh, cool, he's got some good peripherals. Oh yeah, but he's just okay. He's there. He's mid, And the more and more I look into it, the more I like him, especially now when it comes to his competition, right? So I've got him at running back 44. You have him at 59. Going for 2 has him at 60. KTC 59, Fantasy Calc 54. His ADP is the late 17th round at RB 60, RB 59 in the underdog streets as a late 16th, early 17th round pick. So basically one of your last dart throws before the end there. Blake Corum, on the other hand, is RB 56. You have him at 44, and GF2 has him at 50. And again, across the board, better rankings than Hunter, whether it's KTC or Fantasy Calc or the ADP in both Dynasty Data Lab and except Underdog, where he is actually 3 running backs behind on an ADP when it comes to people are making the bet at Hunter, but they are close in ADP. So I think people are kind of mixing and matching. So why do I say that he is the best running back in the backfield? Kyren Williams is a volume sponge. he has good assets like that he can pass block and it doesn't tip off the play, which, McVay loves. And people are always like, oh, McVay loves a workhorse, whatever. Like, there's been times when he did, and there's been times when he didn't. And he's also learned, like, McVay went from being a traditional Shanahan outside zone to being among the pioneers in this whole, like, oh, wait, we could probably run up the gut with some duo and power and gap and all that, and pay guards and just run it up the middle. Now that these, we've got the light boxes and the smaller defenses and the too high, right? He was among the pioneers in that. So he's going to learn and change and adapt. And I think when we look at what has been pointed out by both, Ryan Heath and Coach Speak on Twitter, McVay himself has said that he learned from what Liam Cohen could do with a guy like Bucky Irving, and that maybe they need to mix it up more, take snaps off of Kyren, use people in different roles, right? And when we look at Kyren, Blake Corum, and Jarquez Hunter, this is information coming from Zach Arisen, right? Their height and weight are similar, right? They're all 5'8" or 5'9" and between 194 and 205, right? So McVay's got a type, right? But if we look at the speed score for Jarquez Hunter, 105, right, ahead of everybody else on that list, and his explosive run rate in college was almost 24%, whereas Blake Corum was 12.4 and Kyren was 13.1. He brings a dynamism and a burst to the offense that Kyren Williams and Blake Corum don't have. And I think eventually he may not be the leader as far as touches go, but he's the best running back in there, and that's going to make its way to fantasy points. It's going to make its way to, perhaps more importantly than betting on Hunter, betting against Kyren and Corum. So what does it look like, if I lose on this, how do I really get burned? Kyren Williams, who is a mid-talent running back, somehow, keeps going and is a volume sponge and has like a killer year. Okay, fine. That's okay, because it's not like I put all my eggs in the Jarquez Hunter basket. I didn't take Kyren to ADP, and I took other running backs that probably have upside at a better cost, in both Dynasty and in the underdog streets. So I'm okay losing on this one. I know you like Kyren. I know this is one that you said you probably were going to disagree with. So tell me what's up.
I agree with the fact that Kyren is at his price right now, probably a sell, just because you can still get a good price for him. It's just hard for me to overlook. He's been, I think, RB 6 or 7 2 years in a row. And even if Jarquez Hunter does come in, I still think with the pass blocking and just the intangibles that Kyren has that don't always show up on like speed scores and tape, every time he's out there, the offense is productive. I think this is going to really hurt Corum a lot more than it will Kyren. And I realized I hadn't published my rankings. I had now moved Jarquez to 43, Corum at 44. So they're both right there still, but I do have Hunter one ahead because I do think he's going to be the RB2 in this offense now. And I just don't know how much pass work he's going to break into, because I still think Kyren might be the better receiver overall out of them as far as just route running goes. But Jarquez Hunter does bring a burst and long speed ability that they haven't seen from that position. So I do think McVay is going to use that. And I think Hunter's a good buy at his. So I think you're right. I still like Kyren. I'm not going to bet against him necessarily, but I'm also not drafting him or buying him at his cost. And if I have him and I'm set on running back, I'm perfectly fine with selling him.
Yeah, I think the thing about the passing to the running backs is, like, I think Hunter did enough in college to show that he can do it and was efficient when he did catch the ball. And that fed into his good peripherals. And the reason I'm okay with making the bet on Hunter, or at least fading Kyren, is because the part where Kyren, aside from maybe the pass blocking, is clearly better, let's say, than Hunter, is the receiving. That offense really doesn't throw to the running backs anyway. One of the things that's been holding Kyren back is that people like you and I have been saying, throw him the damn ball. He can catch the damn ball. Throw him the damn ball. And they're not doing it. So if he's not being used for the one thing that he's like so much better than Hunter at, then so I guess the question then for me then is, like, we're both sort of agreeing more than I thought, but I want to move it to where Jamie's talking here, where he's saying that KTC has him top 12, Kyron that is, and Jamie has him closer to 20. I have Kyron with Jamie. I have him at 19. Right now, some of that is because of the way that I bucket guys. Like I'll have a full tier of McCaffrey, Jacobs, Henry, old guys, right? So I'm not like mixing young and old. It might look a little different if I didn't bucket that way. But yeah, so where do you have Kyron when it comes to the rest of the running backs?
I have him at 15. I have Walker, Henderson, Jacobs ahead of him.
Mm-hmm.
I had him at 12. I moved him back 3 spots. So I still have him pretty high. And teams that I have him, and I'm going to keep him because I think he's still going to be productive. And I still think he's better. He don't have as much upside as Hunter because the playmaking, but I do think he's overall better because he's been in the league. He's a veteran, and I do think he has more trust. So I do think he's still going to outproduce. But at the same time, this is definitely more of a hit on Corum than anybody. I don't have Corum on any teams. I never really drafted him, so I don't really have to worry about it. But if you do, I'm not sure if you could really get out from him at this point. But it's not looking good for him.
Right, that's fair. What is your fifth and final? Fuck around and find out.
My last one is something I actually just did in that best ball league. A lot of times if I have picks even 2 through 7, 3 through 7, 3 through 8, I'm going to look to trade back to either the end of the first or early second. And the main reason I'm going to do that is because I really like some of the talent at the end with Luther Bird and Jaden Higgins, some of my favorite targets. And if you trade back to the right people, you can throw on a future first. You can throw on some seconds where you could take shots on Jackson Dart, Cam Scatabo, Tootin, some of these other guys. So instead of taking like Amarian Hampton, even Henderson, who I really like, if I don't need a running back, I'm more than happy to move back, take a shot on a young receiver that I really like and I think is being a really good value. And then adding a future first, especially a 27 first. Really trying to stack those up because I think that class is going to be stacked. And it's easier to get to a lot of people than a 26. So I'm trying to stack up on those more second round picks. I think the second, early third round's really strong in these rookie drafts.
It's interesting. I think of it a little differently. So I think for me, I've taken Hampton at the 102 like once or twice just because it's kind of like, well, I'll mix it in. But I think him at 102 is a colossally bad use of the 102 relative to some other things because the running back class is so deep. I'm willing to trade a little further back in that tier of 2 to 7. I don't know that I'm as enthused to trade out of it. I would need, I think, a good price if I'm there in the late first and early second because I'm just there and didn't trade out of that early tier. I'm kind of am with you. I think Golden is undervalued. I think I'm taking some shots on Burden to mix him in, even though I don't love him. Same with Higgins. There are some people who are really smart, like Sean Siegel, who absolutely love Jaden Higgins. He's got him as like the wide receiver 3 in the class. I'm less enthused about Caleb Johnson than some other people are, but if you like him, he's there. Dart, Harvey, right? These are all guys that I like. I just think there's an appreciable difference between that tier that ends, let's say, like for me, 7 would be like Loveland in a premium. I'd need a good price to get out of the top 7. Yeah.
See, I'm just not that impressed with I like Loveland and I like Warren, but at the same time, like at least just me, I'm happy with just skipping out on that whole tier. Mm-hmm. It's really Henderson's the only one, and maybe Tet that I'd be willing to stick in there for, but
yeah, and I think one of the arguments I made against taking Hampton at 102 is that for me, the Hunter and Tet hitting is so much probably better than like the other wide receivers will be than probably the difference between like a Hampton hitting and say like a Juckins or a Tootin hitting or one of these dark horses that is going to surprise us in like the third round or something like that. So to me, it's about the positional scarcity question and the deep running back class. I think you do miss out on Travis Hunter and Tet. Yeah, but that's just me.
Yeah, there's one case where I'm in a rebuild and I had like 3 first round picks, but I already had St. Brown Rashee Rice. So with the 102 and the 105, I took Amarian Hampton and Judkins. I didn't even really try and trade back. All my team needed was, I felt like, was young running backs who come to season start, if they take off, I can trade for more picks. So I do think there is a time and a place to do that. I just didn't feel good about it. Like, I didn't feel good about spending a 102 on Amarian Hampton.
Yeah.
That's the only time I didn't trade out of that pick if I had it.
Yeah. I'm spiritually opposed to the idea of super chats. I didn't even know that we had them. Jeff never told me he put them in. But I suppose we kind of have to do this if the person did it. So this is a 1 QB from Sick Nasty. 102 versus the 105, 108, 307. I'm imagining that that's one pick on one side, and then
it is
the 3 picks.
He put it earlier. Yeah, I'll take the 105, 108 easily.
Yeah, I mean, you got take the 3 picks. And
you can still, if you want a running back, you can still get Judkins or Tet is falling there, Travis Hunter.
Yeah, so and probably just about any format. So yeah. I didn't know that we.
In the 307, you can get some pretty good guys there. Kyle Williams is sometimes there in the third. I'm picking him in the second. I even like Tay Felton, some of those other guys like that. So
yeah, one of the reasons I'm also I was a little disagreeing with your point is that I'm starting to see almost like I don't want to call it a firewall, but after like the 16 or 17 picks, things get pretty flat, and so do I like players there for their cost? Yes. But is there much of a difference between the 205 and the 212 for me? Not really.
See, that's when I shoot for future picks because, like I said, rookie fever is a thing. People see a 26 second versus the 211. They'll do that. I'm like, I'll take that. It might not seem like you get much, but next year it'll really pay off.
Yeah. I think I'm going to have to message Jeff and see if there's a way to turn off super chats for certain streams because I am philosophically, spiritually, and emotionally opposed to the idea of someone paying to chat and me having to put it up. So, but I love you, Sick Nasty. And I
appreciate the question.
I hope that
I was going to try and I was going to answer that at the end anyways.
I'm about to get sick and nasty on a Saturday night on my couch with some tissues. All right. So my last one is Chase Brown. I am bearish on Chase Brown. People who were bullish on Chase Brown last year think that they got it right, and they didn't. He benefited from the Zach Moss neck injury and was forced into a volume situation. Did he handle it pretty well? Yes. Yeah, he did produce. Obviously, the expected fantasy points are going to be there, and that's a good and important thing. But on this is just one stat, but on games where he saw 10 or more carries, he had under 4 yards per carry. And on games when he had 10 or fewer carries, it was above 6, right? We're looking at one of those situations where we don't want this guy to get a lot of volume because it hurts his performance. Is he athletic? Yes, but he only had one workhorse year in college, his 5th year at Illinois, right? So it's not like it was his 3rd year at a SEC school, right? And he just benefited from that injury. And when we look at that, Pirine and Moss may not be much, but Taj Brooks is not nothing, right? Taj Brooks can take some of the dirty early carries, the tough carries, between the tackles carries. He can pass block. He can catch, right? Is he the explosive weapon that you're gonna do wheel routes and shit with like you would Chase Brown? No, but I think he's gonna eat into Chase Brown's snaps and touches. And when we throw that in with the pass rate being high for the Bengals as opposed to their run rate, I'm looking at Chase Brown as I don't want to say a glorified DeAndre Swift because I don't want to insult him that much. But I see him as a between the 20s running back that doesn't have too much else to offer. And I think his lack of overall talent and the fact that he benefited from a good situation last year is going to catch up with him. And I think it's going to catch up with people who are paying too much for him. I have him at 20. before you published. I had him at 13, so I don't know where that stands now. Going for 2, had him at 13. Okay, so you got him down at 19 now. But KTC 14, Fantasy Calc 18. You can get him at the 5'10 in a startup at running back 16. I'm not spending the 5'10 on a Chase Brown running back, right? Because I either got someone who is a pretty good value in the 3rd or 4th, or I'm getting guys that are even better values later. He's RB11 in the underdog streets now as a mid-3rd round pick. I don't click on him much, only if I think I can get a super stack of like the Burrow, Chase Brown, and then Jamar Chase, Higgins. I don't think that me getting burned by this is going to look all that bad, right? Because when it comes to the alternatives that I'm paying for the other things that I want instead of Chase Brown, and when I look at what Chase Brown's realistic ceiling is in his range of outcomes, I don't see this as something where like I'm going to say I shouldn't have fucked around. I'm not going to at the end of 2025 and be like, I should have been bullish on Chase Brown. He absolutely burned me in the way that another player might. So what say you on Chase Brown?
I'm with you. I had him higher at the end of last year just because the opportunity was there. But looking at it more, I mean, he's still, a running back too. So, I mean, I was honestly shocked by how he produced last year. I'm surprised he held up the way he did. I only have him in 1 or 2 leagues, and I'm actively trying to sell him before the season starts because I think now is when his value is going to be the highest. But if he's on your team, like you want to hang on to him, I think he's going to be good when he's in the game. But I do think last year is definitely his ceiling. I don't see him replicating that. But I think he's a decent RB2. That's about it. Yeah. I'm just kind of indifferent towards him, really. He's a good player, but I'm not really trying to get him. And I definitely won't be drafting him. I'm taking receivers in the 5th round.
I mean, he looked like a prime candidate to get company in the backfield one way or another. He survived free agency, but like people are like, oh, Taj Brooks, 6th rounder. Like, yes, but when we think about the overall NFL meta with how running backs get pushed down in the draft, and when we think about this 2025 class where they got pushed down even more because the class was so deep, like Taj Brooks in the 6th round, like if he was in last year's draft, he's a 4th rounder.
Yeah.
And so think about it like that, right? So it's all about, how deep the class was and other things like that. So, people completely hand-waving and dismissing Taj Brooks, I think, are making a mistake. Do I think Taj Brooks to the moon? Absolutely not. Do I think he's enough to make Chase Brown's price right now seem way too high? Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, that just about does it for us. We talked a little bit about things that we almost put on the list, like, I almost talked about Mahomes, or I almost talked about Kyler and that kind of. Is there anything where you were like, I don't know, I'm a little too scared to put it on this show sheet?
Yeah, after all the absolute shit that I talked about Quentin Johnson, I drafted him. Let me pull up this. He went in between an interesting. Actually, did mean to bring this up. He went between an interesting group. So before him went Alec Iomanor. I picked Quentin Johnson, and then Torrey Horton went. So that's where he's going. Quentin Johnson's going with 4th round rookie receivers. I'm going to take a chance, and it's the 17th round. At that point, I'm going to take a shot on him. Mm-hmm. He had opportunities in 17th round. Nothing. I'm not going to be upset if it doesn't work out.
Okay.
That's I'll take him over 4th round. Like, I like Iomanor as a late 2nd, early 3rd, but Torrey Horton, he's definitely late 3rd, early 4th. I'll take Quentin Johnson. So I almost put that, but it's the only time I've ever drafted him.
So my one that I almost put in there was Jaden Daniels is going to break some hearts this year. And Jaden Daniels is going to break some hearts because people have him at 101 in startups. And I get it. I can't get there. And I can simply say that there's okay. So I know he's a different player and there's the rushing there, but people after Stroud's rookie year, right, we're telling you to take him at 103 in startups, right? And look what happened, right? So is that a 1-to-1? Absolutely not. But what is true? Can sophomore slump? Yes. when people get tape on rookie quarterbacks after their first year, do they figure some things out? And you really need like 18 to 24 starts, 30 starts of a quarterback's career to really know who he is? Yes. Among the prospects of the quarterbacks last year, was his bad tape the worst of anybody's bad tape? Absolutely. It was early. It was with Arizona State, but even his second to last year at LSU, people were like, we need to get this guy off the field and put in Garrett Nussmeier, right? To his credit, he grew. He put on the VR goggles, learned how to read defenses, improved at throwing over the middle, took that improved throwing over the middle into the NFL, and really took a step up where I had a big concern about him throwing over the middle. He's also in a pretty training wheelsy Cliff Kingsbury offense. And yes, did he bulk up a little bit this year? And are there a little bit better weapons around him? Yes. But I also think the team's being way too aggressive about where they are in their win cycle. And I think it's entirely possible that last year might be Jaden Daniels' best year. Like, he could be playing at his ceiling, and you're certainly paying for it if you're taking him in the top 3 picks in a startup draft. And I don't know that I can pay for him at his ceiling right now after his rookie year. So that was my I'm too scared to put it on the show sheet take. So
I have him 103, and I have him in the top tier, but I'm still going to I have Lamar 1, and I have Allen 2. I'm still going to take them 2. I'm fine with 103. I mean, at that point, say what you want about Hurts. I'd still rather take a shot at him 103 than Bowers 104. You know how I roll.
I was dragged kicking and screaming to Daniels at 103. Or even at quarterback 3. I had him at quarterback 5 for a really long time. If I'm at the 101, 102, 103, well, let me put it to you this way. If I'm at the 103 and Lamar and Allen are off the board, I'm trading out. Give me Hurts or Burrow. Give me Chase or, whatever I can get in the first round, plus what I'm getting later on. I'm getting a haul for Jaden Daniels.
I'm not against it. You can definitely get a lot.
I could be wrong though. I mean, you're talking to the guy who fell in love with the following players: Brevin Jordan, Davis Mills, Kyle Pitts, okay, Justin Fields, Anthony Richardson, Jamison Williams, who I traded straight up for Puka after 2 weeks. I said, Puka can't keep that up. So, that's who you're talking to. Tank Bigsby. I was a Tank Bigsby truther. I'm a worthy truther. I have my misses. So,
No, I'm fine with it. I mean, I think if you trade back, I don't think there's gonna be a point where like, man, I really should have kept him, because I mean, he's going to be a top 2, top 1 quarterback. That's what you expected. If you trade out of the 103, you're probably getting a lot extra anyways. So
let me ask you this. If at the end of 2025, Jaden Daniels has fewer fantasy points, either total or per game or whatever, than both Caleb Williams and Drake May, will you be shocked?
No, because I also thought about putting Caleb Williams on here. I think he's going to take a big step up, and the talent that he's shown, he was the consensus 101 for a reason. Drake May, I would be a little more surprised, but at the same time, he has just as good rushing upside as Jaden Daniels. Might not be as good, but it's there, and they've got a little bit better weapons now. But I'd be more surprised with May, but I wouldn't be shocked.
What I think Daniels can bite me in the ass the most is not what people think can bite me in the ass the most. He is cool as a cucumber, and that's meaningful in the NFL.
Yeah.
And therefore can translate into you staying on the field, making better decisions, better for fantasy, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah. Yep. All right, you want to wrap this up and then go talk about what I need to put on top of Cam Ward to get Trevan Henderson from you? Or
Yep. Yeah.
All right, sounds good. All right, thank you so much for watching and listening, folks. Josh, it was a pleasure. It's been too long, although understandable that we haven't been together, and I really enjoyed doing this. Please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review if you're on the audio, and if you're on the video, do all the other things: the likes, the commenting, the subscribing, the bells, notifications, the giving us coins in a gift box that I can put on my cat ears and nipple pasties on Twitch. I don't know, whatever. Time for plugs. Where can folks find you and your work, Josh?
Yeah, you can find my freshly updated rankings at goingfor2.com. Brian, I also have a little sub channel in the Discord. That's the Going for 2 Discord. You can find all of that at goingfor2.com. Yeah, that's really all I'm doing right now. Been kind of mentally checked out. Hopefully we can start doing this. Maybe not every single Saturday, but fairly often. Once the regular season starts, maybe we can get back onto it. But yeah, it's good to be back. Thank you everyone for showing up in the comments. Sick Nasty. Good to see you.
All right, you can find Josh at Rotonaut on Twitter. Yeah, you can find
probably bitching about the Braves at this moment.
You can find me at FF Junkie _ on Twitter. You can find me on Blue Sky at Flesh Farm Leftover. It's from a Fish lyric, and you probably
wait. They have lyrics.
If you want to only hear fantasy football for the most part, stick to Twitter. If you'd like to hear me talk about fantasy football and also go off on politics and capitalism, and find me on Blue Sky. Just fair warning, folks. A lot of the communism tends to show up more on the Blue Ski. And rankings is of course at goingfor2.com, where you can find the link to the Discord. There's a show on here, especially as the regular season kicks up, just about every night or day of the week. The Discord's free. It really doesn't have any chuckleheads in there. Just a lot of people talking ball and asking for advice and that kind of stuff. I also co-host Dynasty Fever with Jesse Schneeman of the DWZ Network. We're fairly irregular as well. We had a really good, I think, pre-draft episode, and I'm going to hook up with him again, see what he's doing, because he's taking June and July off, at least June, part of July. So we'll probably kick up again late summer and do like our hot takes episode where we rate each other's hot takes on the pepper scale, the Scoville pepper scale of like green pepper to ghost pepper or whatever. So anyway, yeah, we'll do a little bit of that fun stuff. And yes, you can find, as Jamie said, you can find Josh in the 1980s porn videos with the mustache.
I even trimmed it yesterday. If I knew that Jamie was going to love it this much, I just would have left it. So check back in a few weeks.
Yeah. So that'll be it for us. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And Josh, for the people, how do we end shows?
Let's go Braves. Fire Brian Snicker. Get him out of here.
What about the Irish?
It's baseball season.
Baseball season. All right. Jeremiah Love, RB1, 2027.
Oh, easily.
It's gonna be interesting. All right, folks. I really want to say something political to end the show, but whatever. Just not gonna do it. Let's just say go Braves. All right.